Great. So in this episode, we're going to be looking at something monumental that just happened yesterday. And that has to do with the impact of the US, or in this case, the Trump tariffs, particularly on Africa. And we are going to break it down. It's just something that I think the world saw it coming, but they didn't think it was going to be this massive. The reach was going to be almost to the entire length and breadth of the world. It's just massive. And this thing has the potential to affect every living person on this planet Earth. That is these trade tariffs. So we are going to go deeply into it. And obviously, it is going to affect some countries more so than others. But pure and simply, every country on the continent of Africa is going to be impacted, as you're going to see very shortly. You're going to see countries that are going to be hit the hardest, vis-a-vis countries that are, I would say moderately hit. So without much ado, I'm just going to share my screen because this is really just off the oven. It's really hot. And I'm going to share that with you so that if your country is seriously or negatively impacted, at least you need to know. And you need to know what that impact is probably going to mean for you and your family or your work, whatever it is. But I think I owe you the duty to share what I've been able to find with you. So without much ado, I'm just going to share my screen. We jump into it. But right before that, if you haven't as yet subscribed to this channel, do the needful and subscribe to this channel where we share great insights about Africa, investment opportunities, market insights, trends, and what have you. And if that type of content resonates with you, subscribe to this channel and then click on the notification button so that anytime we come up with great content like this one, you will be the first to be notified. So without much ado, let me just go in and share my screen with you. Let me pull my laptop and share my screen. And what you are going to find is you're going to be shocked, right, as to how this thing is impacting pure and simply the whole entire world, right? Pure and simply. So I have my screen shared here. So I'm going to take you through, this is like real information that the White House just shared. And I've been able to pick it and highlight. So basically, I'm going to go through a couple of slides. And as I go through, I'm going to share with you the countries that I acknowledge as African, that I've highlighted with this purple. So you're going to see on the screen that there's this purple highlight. So I'm just going to briefly talk about what this chart means. Just a beautiful chart about what it means. So you see that on the very left column is a country column, right? And then the next column, the middle column, is what the US is calling, these are tariffs that these countries on the left side charge US exporters to send goods into their country. So let's say if you are, let's pick it. So let's say the one that I've highlighted on this screen is South Africa. Right? So South Africa, what it means is that whenever a US company is exporting products into South Africa levies a 60% tariff on that US product entering into South Africa. Okay, that figure I hear from the experts is debatable. Most countries are saying that they do not charge US that much. So US is saying that this is not just physical or transactional money that they charge US exporters into, say, South Africa, but all the non-tariff barriers that they put in place to make sure that US products, go through friction or go through barriers before they get their goods into other countries like South Africa, including what the US is calling currency manipulation to make it difficult for US to get their products into South Africa. Some countries deliberately devalue their currencies so that US dollar becomes more expensive, and therefore their citizens would deem buying US products is more expensive. They call it currency manipulation. So they found a way to calculate all those kind of things and give and quantify it in terms of a percentage of tariff that the country slams on US imports, right? So that's debatable, but that's what it is. What it is. I'm just presenting the facts. So in this case, the middle column is what the US has classified as harsh tariffs against US imports. Then the far right, that's the third column, as you would see here, is the new reciprocal tariffs that US is slamming on these countries, right? So if we pick China, for instance, and I know we're not talking about China, it's the number one on the list. So if you pick China, for instance, the US thinks that China charges tariffs of 67% of US imports into China. So what they are doing is that they are doing a reciprocal tariff, which is half of what they think the countries of the world are charging them for exporting their products into them. So in this case, the US is charging half of the 67%, I think it's rounded up. Half of that is 34%, right? To them, they think that is fair. To the US, they think charging half of what you charge them is fair game. So that is all that it is. So with that said, let's go. We're going to go step by step into the African countries that have been slammed the most. Okay, some of them are being plastered to the wall, literally. And it's going to have if this thing is sustained, it's going to have a serious knock-on effect on the economies. No doubt about that. So somebody must rise to the game to find a way to maybe negotiate or come up with countermeasures, else the economies are going to be creamed. So with that said, let's jump into it. So the first on the list, on this first slide, as you see, is South Africa. And if you are not African and you care to follow your country, you can find these numbers here, right? And I'm going to find a way to also put this list on the website so that you'll be able to find this list as a link in the description of this video so that you can also follow along, right? Or download it, whatever it is. So we're going to attempt to do that. Okay, so the first thing is South Africa is being slammed with 30% reciprocal US tariffs. That is no joke, my friends. And so we're going to go to the next one. So on the next slide, there are many countries, but I've highlighted the African ones, these purple colors, right? So Madagascar, US is saying that Madagascar charges 93% tariffs on US imports. So they are being slammed with 47% tariffs. And I'm going to be doing country breakdown very soon on this channel, particularly about certain countries, and Madagascar is going to be one of them. That country is struggling financially. And as you would see, so I'll be using the Africa Insights.ai platform to do that, and you're going to find a phenomenon about the country of Madagascar. Right? So it's saying that Madagascar charges them 93%, so they are slamming 47% tariffs on them. That's big. Then Ivory Coast charges 41%. That's according to the US tariffs. So the US is levying a 21% tariff on Ivory Coast. Then next on the list is Botswana. So Botswana, it's 37% tariff that is being levied on all Botswana products that are being shipped to the US. Particularly, I think Botswana is a home of diamonds. So diamonds and precious metals, precious jewelry, precious minerals that are shipped to the US are going to be slammed with 37% tariff. And that is no joke. That is massive. Okay. So let's jump to the next slide. It's going to be Malawi. So you see that as I've highlighted that Malawi, a little bit moderate, I would say. Malawi charges 34% for US imports, and US is in return slamming them with 17%. So 17% in some ways better than 47%, right? Although it's terrible, but still bad. Then the next on the list is Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe is being slammed 18%. 18% because they levy 35%. Based on this information, they levy 35% on US imports. Then the next on the list is going to be Equatorial Guinea. These are quite marginal numbers, but for Equatorial Guinea, they are being slammed 13%, right? And then because they charge 25%. Okay. Then Libya, I didn't know that Libya had this kind of arrangement with US. Libya slammed 61% on US imports, and in return, they are being slammed 31%. I think Libya predominantly exports crude, petroleum, hydrocarbons, and things to the US. That's right. And once again, when we do country by country breakdown, we're going to even using the Africa Insights.ai platform, you're going to see what these countries even export. And it's fascinating. Really, really, really fascinating. And it's not an exaggeration. Okay, so the next one is Chad. Chad, on the ones that I've highlighted, Chad, apparently, the US considers them charging them 26% tariffs, so they are being hit 13% on the flip side. Okay, so let's move to the next one. Algeria is a big one. Algeria, just like South Africa, as you can see, Algeria is here, just like South Africa, is being hit with how much? 30%. Why? Because to the US, they slam 59% tariffs on US products. The next one, which is the worst of them all, and I was surprised to see this, Lesotho. This is one of the tiniest countries by landmass or land size on the continent of Africa. And actually, even populations, they are small, very, very tiny. But they are getting the biggest brunt of these US tariffs. Frankly speaking, I don't know how they are going to deal with this. 50% tariffs on the products they ship to the US. 50%. And I'm going to be doing a follow-on episode on this to delve deeper into some of these countries that are being hit, what they actually export, and how does it actually impact them. But I can tell you for a fact that if the GDP of the percentage of export compared to the GDP of Lesotho for the US is high, then Lesotho is in big trouble. What am I saying? So your gross GDP in layman's terms, not in an economist kind of term, layman's broad term, is the output of the entire nation per year, or in terms of, if it was a company, I'll say revenue for the year. So if the monies or the revenue that Lesotho is making in an entire year, the amount of money they are making from US exports is very significant, then they are in big trouble. Then they are in massive trouble. They need to figure out where they are going to get. If US is slamming 50% of it, of tariffs on that good or that product, then they are in big trouble. Example, if let's say the amount of the GDP of Lesotho per year, it's say, I'm just putting these numbers out for simplicity and explanation purposes. If it's $1 billion a year, and let's say the amount of exports that they export to the US amounts to, let's say, $200 million. That is 20%. So 20% of your GDP is coming from just one country. And all of a sudden, that country slams 50% tariff on your exports. That means that country potentially has halved your export without even trying. That would impact you big time. So that's what's happening here with Lesotho, where they were charging 99% according to the US. I don't know what it is. I'm guessing, and we'll do a deep dive. I'm guessing it's probably going to be auto parts or something, or maybe textile. Or we'll figure it out when we do deep dive country by country analysis. Okay, so that 99%, US is giving them 150%. Now the next one is Mauritius. It's also very high. So they are being slammed with 40%. 40% tariffs. Okay. Then our big brother, the giant of the continent, Nigeria. Nigeria is being hit with 14%, which is in some ways moderate compared to the others, right? So let's jump on to the next on the list. So the next list is Angola. So we are just identifying the African countries of this because they've not been arranged in order of continents. It's just been arranged any which way they want to arrange, basically. So Angola apparently has slammed 63% according to this report. I don't know how true that is, but I'm just reading the facts. 63% tariff on US products, and in reverse or in reciprocation, they're being hit with 32%. Okay. Then Mozambique is being hit with 16%. So that's Mozambique right here. 16% tariffs because they do 31% on US product. Then the next is Zambia. Zambia is being hit with 17%. All these are kind of moderate, things, except a few others, which we're going to take a good look at in our summary. And so there are other African countries here, but I've not highlighted them. This is the reason. Every African country is being hit with a tariff. Every one of them. There's no exception. The ones that I've highlighted are the ones that are above the baseline. So what it means is that US is saying practically every country in the world has been slammed with 10% baseline tariff. So whether you sell to US or you don't, whether you are an island with just one person or not, US is saying anytime anything you export out to the US, you're being hit with 10%. So you're going to see countries, see that, like Guinea-Bissau is Africa, right? Guinea-Bissau, US is estimating that they have 10% tariff on US products, which I don't know how true it is. So they are also equally slamming a baseline. So the minimum every country is being hit with is 10%. So if you are like Ghana or Kenya or the rest that I've not mentioned, it means that you're being slammed with just baseline tariffs, right? So I'm just picking out the outliers or the ones that are being hit with, I would say, serious punitive tariffs above the baseline. Those are the ones that I highlighted. So with that said, let's look at the summary. This is a summary of all the African countries that have been hit massively by this new tariff that was just announced. And I've arranged them in the order of the ones with the highest tariffs being slammed on them to the ones with the lowest. And the ones that are not on this list are the ones that are going to have the baseline tariffs, the baseline. So when you look at it, I think there are 17 of them here. Number one is Lesotho. So as you can see, Lesotho, number one, 50% tariff. That is a bitter pill to swallow. Number two, Madagascar, 47% tariff. 3, Mauritius, 40% tariffs. Botswana is number 4, 37%. The next is Angola, 32%. Then followed by Libya, 31%. Then South Africa. South Africa is going through a lot. And this could have come in at the worst time, because they export, they have a massive trade surplus with the United States, and the United States doesn't like that at all. The United States would want you to have a trade deficit with them. And South Africa has a massive, I think the last time I checked was about $9 billion. That means of all the trade, the things they export to the US and the ones they import from the US, when you wash the two of them off, South Africa is better off with 9 billion. So let me put it in perspective once again. So let's say South Africa exports goods worth, let's say they import goods worth, say 10 billion, right? This is not factual. I'm just making it up to make sense, right? So they import $10 billion of goods from the US. South Africa, rather, in turn, exports $19 billion of goods to the US. That means that in their trading with US, you subtract the 10 billion from the 19 billion, they have 9 billion surplus. They have extra 9 billion. US doesn't like that now. Under the Trump administration, trade surplus, you'll be slapped. And that is what is happening here. So 30% here. Algeria is another 30%. And Cote d'Ivoire, 21%. I need to look into this. This probably may be cocoa beans export to the US. Then Zimbabwe is 18%. And the list goes Malawi, Zambia, Mozambique, Nigeria, Chad, Equatorial Guinea, and finally Cameroon. Right? Cameroon. So basically, these are the top, I would say 17 or so. I think they are 17. 17 countries being massively creamed by these Trump tariffs. All right. If you enjoy this type of content, I have amazing offer for you. Not selling you anything. We have a newsletter we just introduced called the African Market Insights Weekly Newsletter. It's jam-packed with latest trends, latest analysis on investments across the continent of Africa. It's well-researched, amazing content that drops in your inbox every Saturday. So if you're interested, I would want you to subscribe to that. Follow the link in the description and sign up for that newsletter. It's free. This newsletter, other people would have charged for it, but it's free. And I would want you to subscribe to that so that every latest investment opportunity, any kind of market analysis, market risk, anything about African continent, particularly for those who are inclined to be potential investors or doing business in Africa or want to expand their reach into any African market, that newsletter is for you. So do so. And also, if you still haven't subscribed, pause this video, subscribe right now. All right. I'll see you in our next episode. Stay safe.